You are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact, and more revenue in your business. Tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Christine Campbell-Rappin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. Welcome back, everybody. We are on the warpath today in a really good way. So many of you are looking for client growth, and there's one key magic ingredient that you need to see the right clients coming into your business, and that is about asking better questions. I'm really excited to introduce you our guest today, who is known as the Quiz Queen. I have friends that have hired her. I've been watching her for a long time, and this is Catharine O'Leary. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I am too, because we share a lot of similar thoughts, which is all about helping business owners find more qualified leads, see the right people in their ecosystem so that you can get more yeses. It is about all kinds of client conversion boosting, and you are a fabulous guide to help us through this conversation. And I want to start with the elephant in the room. Why do we not have the results we want? Where do we start?
Well, I think there's a lot of assumptions that we are going through, that we've created a business, we've created a solution, and we know the problem that we want to solve. And we start assuming a whole bunch of things about what people are asking for, what people are needing. We forget that we're on the other side of the problem, so we don't necessarily have the right language, the way that people are thinking about the problem, and we just make assumptions without asking any questions. So it's a little bit like, asking someone if they have a problem and then going straight into a solution without any questions. It feels a little like proposing marriage on the first date. It's a little wonky. It's a little creepy, because you don't necessarily know if you have the right solution for them. You haven't asked any questions.
I know this one, honestly, I hope you all feel called out in a really good way if you're listening today, because this is the truth. We are making far too many assumptions from what we thought it was like in hindsight.
Yes.
And that is a dangerous lens to be using, because it often is very skewed, and you're coming from the place of enlightenment, which is different language, which I heard you say, different speed, different understandings. And we get caught in many ways, I think, marketing to our peer group instead of marketing to the client who is not in the same space. And one of the things that I know you talk a lot about, and that's what we're going to sit down today to talk about, is the communication gaps.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are 3 of them. Start us with the big one, number 1.
Yeah, the big one is really understanding, it's twofold. It's your ideal client. So it's getting into the 3 a.m. question that they have. So everyone wakes up, at 3 a.m. and they have that, ooh, like that, oh my gosh, I just wish I could. Or how am I going to? Or, what is that problem that they're waking up with? And the key to this is, nobody ever wakes up thinking really clever marketing language. When they think about the 3 a.m. question, they think, I just need more clients. How am I going to make the mortgage? How am I going to lose the weight before the wedding? How, like, they don't wake up thinking, how am I going to get my quiz funnels to convert better? That's not the language that they use. So what is the language that they use? And making sure that it's the ideal client that you're actually answering the question for. Because if you're serving 2 or 3 different 3 a.m. questions, chances are good you haven't niched down far enough. So you really got to kind of hone in on that one 3 a.m. question that you really, you can solve. But what is it in their language? How do they think about it? How do they talk about it when they're with their friends? And they're trying to problem solve these things, because it's not the way that we typically talk about it when we're on the other side of the transformation, as you said.
I think this is such an important idea. And one of the things that I recommend to my clients, this is a great tip for our audience, is to keep a language bank. And that is anytime you're overhearing, whether that is in the coffee shop, with your friends, in your own head, the fights you might be having at 3 a.m. with your partner if you're growing a business and it's not going so well, write down the exact phrase. Don't paraphrase it. Don't assume it. Keep a record of it, whether that's in your phone or in a notebook, because that is the language you need to be using. You are 100% right when we think it is simpler in its language. And I think often the other component is we want to solve the big unicorn, the result. And it's not that we don't want it. It's just that one of the first questions we're asking is, how do I start?
Yes.
We think that that's so basic that we don't need to answer it, so we don't. We've assumed that, and it's dangerous because it means they never start. They never start with us. They don't start with us as the must hire. And I'd love your thoughts on, I'm going to say, elegant simplicity. When you are working with your clients, how do you start them figuring out what are these 3 a.m. questions? Or any techniques, any things that you do your business-wise that really can help the audience here listen, learn, and start applying? Don't guess. Get this communication gap filled.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, honestly, the Mac Daddy of all like learning what your clients are saying or thinking is to ask them, right? So market research. So being able to actually get a few of your ideal clients into a conversation and ask them what their 3 a.m. question is, and ask them how, put them in the situation. You're about to jolt out of bed and want to know the answer to something. How do you phrase that? There are other ways to round out that information with Google and Amazon and podcasting, understanding what's being talked about in your topic area. And what language are they using? How do authors actually produce their books, and how do podcasts talk about your topic, and how does Google search your topic, so that you can start getting a little bit of that language and a little bit of that checkpoint on your 3 a.m. question.
I love it. One of the smart tips that I heard, and I love you talk about Amazon on this, because when I was first creating my very first business event, okay, I'm going to take that back. When I created my second business event, the first event was a disaster, wrong audience, wrong business entirely, and that's a different story. But when I decided to really start framing conversations around client growth, I knew the end result was client growth. But the question they were asking is, how do I start? And when you are trying to figure out where's the gap in the marketplace that you can serve, Amazon can be a great place, because other authors have already done the research of this
Yep.
is the question, because they are designing their titles today to be searched and found, which means a very different title than any other kind of way they may have done 10 years ago. If you go to the reviews in Amazon and you look for the low 1 star, 2 stars, they're going to tell you, the person who bought it, what was missing. What's the gap I didn't get? What's the simple question I need answered that was missing? And I will tell you, there's so much rich market research by simply taking the time to ask clearly, what is the thing that starts the movement?
Yeah.
Because you want the buyers to move towards you. So it's not the only piece of the puzzle, though. What's the next communication gap that we need to be aware of?
Well, it's really building the authority, right? So, like, don't forget that your client is on a little bit of a journey. Like, they can't, or almost always they need a little bit of information. They need a little bit of, like, are you my person? Are you the person that's right for me? Is your program right for me? Is your solution right for me? And that, comes down to building authority. So, are you presenting yourself in a way that understands the problem to be solved? Are you taking them on that journey, as opposed to assuming that they're going to jump immediately into the solution? Because if you're assuming that they're going to jump into the solution, you're going to lose them. They're not going to make that leap. They're not ready yet. So, how do you build that authority? You build it through, speaking, you build it through books, you build it through podcasts and summits and so on. But you also build it just by, meeting them where they're at, If you can meet your clients where they're at with really clear messaging, you are, well ahead of your competition.
Mhm. And what I heard in that was be human.
Mhm.
It's so important to recognize that authority isn't, I know the answers. It's something else.
Mhm.
It's, I've walked your path. And here's what gave me the lessons that I can convey. And I'm a work in progress, but I am perhaps a couple chapters ahead, and I'd like to reach back and guide you forward. And I think a lot of times we struggle with this idea that we need to be seen as authority. So if somebody's saying, well, I get it, but hell no. How do you start to build authority? What do you find has been a great way working with your clients to start on this
Well,
gap?
I mean, I think it's just being really authentic with the solution that you have, and being able to craft the journey from the problem that your client has to the solution that you have. If you can, connect the dots for them, because they honestly they don't care that you got to the solution, right? They
Mm,
care that they get to the solution.
yes.
Right? So if you can't help them even see the solution, how are they going to trust you to take them to the solution? Right?
Mm,
So to actually, work with them and get them to the solution. So we've got to be careful and be mindful of, making sure that we're taking them on the conversation with us and not just like, trying to pull them along saying, "Oh, I've got the solution. Let's go." Because that's not going to work. That's where you get into convincing and you spend a lot of time trying to educate. If you're doing that, you haven't spent enough time really bringing the person along with you on the ride.
two big gold nuggets there. One, conversation is the key, and slow it down.
Yeah.
You are skipping steps, and that's exactly the analogy you started with the 3M question. It's like you went straight to a marriage proposal. I need safety in the audience as a potential buyer to observe without you being eyeball to eyeball. I think one of the big mistakes that often leads to is the first thing we want to do is say, I'm happy to have the conversation. Let's do a discovery call. And all of us go into a discovery call going, this is a sales conversation, which means I
Yeah.
opt out and you miss the opportunity, even though they could absolutely be a perfect candidate for you to
Yeah.
help, support, and guide. And that's why this isn't a one step plan. Building a great questioning mindset is a journey. So let's talk about the third key piece of the puzzle. Where's the communication gap that you have to include and most miss?
Oh, people, you got to follow up. I mean,
Say it again for the guys in the back.
the fortune is in the follow up. So, I mean, don't ghost your potential clients. It's rude, right?
And
You
it's
wouldn't
so much
want to
effort you've wasted.
Well, and you wouldn't wanna do it on a date. Like, you wouldn't wanna be the person ghosted. So, like, imagine that, like, your ideal client or your potential client comes through, and they get all the way through to, a discovery call or whatever, and then you never follow up with them again. It doesn't feel good. It's not a good brand experience. It's not a good customer experience. And it's actually leaving a bunch of money on the table because maybe they just needed a little bit more time because this isn't a one and done conversation. It's not a no forever. It might just be a no for right now. So, and that's fine. Like your solution isn't going to be for everyone at the moment that you offer it. A lot of the times, um, in fact, like 97% of the time, it's going to be a decision later. So keep following up, keep nurturing that. You have now built the relationship. It is so much easier to convert somebody that's already in your community than it is to find and nurture a new person into your community. So, get curious and get really, in depth and want to know more about your customers to increase that lifetime value so that you're not looking for the one and done sale, that you're building the relationship so that you build raving fans.
I think this is so important. And I heard a great stat yesterday, and we said 3% of people are buyers today. So that means 97% are not. And even when you make an offer, 20% of people will make a yes in the moment, which means 80% don't. And yet, without a plan, to continue the conversation, you do leave huge money on the table. And I want to talk about what follow-up is and what follow-up is not, because please don't send 12 emails out saying, I'm following up on X. You've got some great strategies in the quiz world that you belong to that talks about how do you do follow-up after a key milestone, whether that's an offer, an event, an experience, or some kind of, I'm going to say transaction, some kind of intersection point. What is follow-up and how do you use it in the work that you're doing?
So, I mean, if it's lead generation where you're bringing somebody into your community, it's really continuing that conversation and getting them to learn even more. So you're building your authority. You're continuing, like in the follow-up, you're continuing to add value and you're continuing to build that authority. So as somebody goes through your quiz, they may, end up, if you're a business coach that takes people from 6 to 7 figures, for example, you might have different outcomes of people that, some people might need mindset work, or some people might need systems, or some people might need leadership. You can follow up with each one of those cohorts. You can follow up with the people that need mindset. Keep following up with them. Hey, how's your mindset? Hey, here's some things that here's a great book, or here's a great free masterclass that you can take on mindset, or if it's systems, hey, how is that going? How, have you did you get your CRM launched? Or continue those conversations, customized and personalized, because you're meeting your clients where they're at. And they will, that's going to build a lot of authority and respect and trust with you.
And it separates you hugely from the audience, which means when you are having conversations, be present in the conversation. Take notes about some of the key hesitations, the key aspirations, and say, I heard you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what you said, which is show up adding more value. I will just talk candidly about my business for a second, which is I will tell you, most people who work with me long term don't say yes on the first offer, and that's not because they're not ready. It's they're thinking they need a small gap and when they maybe need something different. And yet people will come back to you years later, and I said, because I still show up, I still nurture, I still genuinely care for you, whether you choose to say yes or not. And when it happens is that positions myself, and I hope it will position you to be the must hire when they're ready. And there's nothing more irritating for a potential buyer who says, the moment I didn't say yes, you ghosted me. And
Yeah.
I know, I hear it all over the place. I was a transaction to them and I felt that way. Don't be that. Be something else. Be something extraordinary and nurture, and don't leave all that potential you built on the table. I want to ask you in your business right now, what's working for you to ask better questions, find the right people who want to come work with you as the quiz queen?
You know what? It's always about coming from, a place of serving an authenticity, and it's easiest to do that when you're talking to your ideal clients. So, really understanding the audience of who you're talking to, whether it's on a podcast or a summit or a networking group or whatever. It is easier to get the message across that you want, and to be, your energetic self when you're talking about your passion, when you're talking to people that care,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you are being very mindful of not only your audience, but your medium, so your marketing strategy should light you up. Don't go
Mm-hmm.
off and chase every single shiny object out there, right? Find what lights you up. If you're, a social media maven, great, awesome, off you go, right? That's not my gig. That's not what I do. So I tend not to market that way, but show up in the marketing formats and strategies that like you love to do, and it will show, it will shine. And talking to your ideal clients, really understanding them and understanding that 3 a.m. messaging, that's going to be key.
And I love that you picked that, because I said, I actually know your path is speaking. And I know that because I've seen you speak. And I've seen you speak and said, she's someone who really does what she does because she loves it. She is seeing results. And I know because I've seen them, and says, this is my lane. It's easy. And it is still focused effort. how do people find you, your business, and the services you offer?
Yeah. So if you would like to know what gap is potentially holding you back from more clients, you can go to quizformybiz.com. That will actually go a little deeper into what gap you might actually be facing in your business and give you some solutions. But it'll also give you a pathway to connect with me directly. So I would go to quizformybiz.com and we can take it from there.
Guys, I invite you to connect to Catharine. She is an amazing asset to you, helping you figure out what questions to ask. And with knowledge allows you to really, truly amplify your message, fine tune it, get the right people in the room. And honestly, it will fill your business with the right dream clients. So connect to Catharine. You'll find those details. I will make sure the link is in the show notes. I know better questions will help you enormously. Catharine, thank you for being our guest today. Fill the communication gaps, which is know what the 3 a.m. question is, build your authority, and have a very clear plan to keep the conversation going. Build relationships. That's where the fortune lies. Thanks for being our guest, guys. We will see you all on our next episode. Until next time, it's time to accelerate the growth of your business. Get out there, amplify your marketing message. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell-Rappin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrappin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all on our next episode.